This is what we're making, a little hugs and kisses ring that's adjustable because the middle part isn't soldered. Now the truth is, this could be anything you want. It could be different shapes, it could be initials, it could be anything. Just that my idea was to do the old hug and the kiss thing. The material we're using for this is 6 millimeters wide and 0.8 thick. Get your ring size, measure the inside diameter, add the thickness 0.8, multiply by pi. Now for this ring, add another 12 millimeters, I'll show you why in a minute, and cut this strip to that length. My total length is 71, so I just set my calipers for that. Hook them on the end of the metal, drag the other end across, and it gives you a nice line to cut to. Cut that off. You could probably use shears. Now, mark in 6 millimeters on either end, because that's what I told you to do. I told you to make it 12 millimeters longer, and this will just be so that it looks correct. So a 6 millimeter mark on either end, and mark to mark will be the length of your ring shank. So we'll have a little 6 millimeter square on the end. Now take a triangular file and file about 1/3 of the way through the metal on your mark on either end. I just hold my fingernail next to the line so that I can get a start for my file. And once you have the start, that little mark, then file 1/3 of the way down. I've got my file marks. Now what I want is an X on one end, nice and thick, and an O on the other end, and we're going to pierce these out. So this is basically going to be a hugs and kisses ring. Doesn't have to be perfect. But try to make it nice. What you could do is you could print out a circle and an X and paste the paper on, but this really should be simple enough to do by hand. I'm using a Barrett jeweler's file to tidy up the ends of this. If you work from the back, you can actually see the shape a little bit better. And when you get your shape corrected, you're going to have to drill a hole there and in the center of your O so that we can pierce those out. Now when you're sawing, be very precise, because especially on the X, you're not going to be able to get in there to clean that up. So just a 1 millimeter hole. And thread your saw through the saw blade. and you're ready to go to work. So be as precise as you can when you're cutting this out. Both ends. Now turn this so that your cuts are down. Hallmark it on the side where the cuts aren't, because that's going to be the inside of our ring. Now we need to anneal this at this point to make sure we don't break these ends off. Just heat this until it's a dull red. I'm using the Smith's mini torch, but you can use anything. Just be sure you move the flame off the metal when you're trying to see the color. If the flame's on the metal, you won't be able to see the color. So that's a nice dull red. And quench it in water. Now I'm just going to, at this stage, push this around my ring mandrel, and we want our cuts in the metal to be up at this point. Make it fairly even. And now we're going to take our parallel jaw pliers so you can see the cut here. Take the parallel jaw pliers, put the edge close to the mark, but not exactly on it. And then we're going to bend that out. Same thing with the X. Be careful, we don't want to break these off. But we do want a fairly nice sharp edge. Now we can continue bending our ring around the mandrel until these ends touch. That's our beginning. That's the proper size. If you wanted to leave these vertical, you could, but what I'd like would be for them to lay down. So I'm going to have to keep filing. You could use your saw on this part, but we want to be able to bend these down a little bit more. I'm just bracing this on the end of my bench peg. Don't saw it off, and don't go over half the depth, because that way it'll still be plenty strong. Do the other side. And this is just to give it space so that we can keep bending it. Yep. If it breaks off, you can solder it back on. But we should be able to get it most of the way. We should be able to get it so these are fairly flat. So that's my Hugs and Kisses ring. No soldering, but this is really going to be fragile. The metal is fairly thin where we've bent it. So I would solder that. If you really wanted to, you could solder the ends of the ring together, but I quite like it that it's a little bit adjustable. So I'm going to solder this. You can use easy solder. I'm going to use hard because that's what I usually use. And then I'll just pickle it and tumble it. Done.